introducing system and operational efficiency with Pragma Edge health checks. Pragma Edge, we're an IBM Premier Business Partner, and you can reach out at us at sales@pragmaedge.com. Today's agenda will focus on what is a health check. We'll look at some challenges and some trends that we've seen in the field through our numerous years of experience. We'll look at some best practices for tuning the IBM Sterling environment. That includes B2B integrator, file gateway, secure proxy, and the entire suite. We'll look at exactly what's covered in a health check, as it's a very comprehensive. We'll look at some case studies as well. We'll look at once a system is completely tuned, what that golden architecture is all about, and really the target architecture that we really feel that all customers should strive to get to in the near future. We'll hear from insights from Zoetis. We're joined by Mr. Ashutosh here today. We'll go over some of their journey with health checks and our tools. And then finally, we'll dig into File GPS and Jarvis, Pragma tools for enhanced visibility and monitoring, and we'll open it up for questions and answers. Just some housekeeping. Feel free to put questions in the chat. Feel free to put any comments, anything. We have some folks monitoring the chat, and then we'll post some questions along the way. As I mentioned, my name is Ryan Wood. I'm the Director of Customer Success here at Pragma Edge. Worked with many of those folks that are on the call here today, so thank you all for joining. My background is I've supported these products for many, many years, going back to 2007. I have over 18 years of experience with the Sterling suite of software. I've been in roles from support to engineering to product management, and excited to be here with Pragma Edge here today. I'm also joined by one of my colleagues, Sumit Ahuja, who is our pre-sales solutions architect. He'll go into some details of some best practices. And then we're also delighted to have Mr. Ashutosh Shukla, technical integration lead at Zoetis. Ashutosh has been with Zoetis for over 9 years, during of which he's taken over various roles. Currently, he's leading the integration operations team, which encompasses the SAP Basis, SAP Process Integration, and the Sterling Integrator AMS team. So many hats that Ashutosh wears, and thank you for being with us today. So let's take a look. Why do we need, and really what is the need for highly performant systems? And what are some of the trends that are driving that? So what customers are really dealing with across multiple pillars is lack of visibility, IT skills shortage, journey to cloud. Many of you are undertaking migrations, whether it's upgrades, whether it's a move to containers, looking for more resilience. So how do you keep your systems on 24/7? That includes both planned outages and maintenance. How do you make sure the product is always on to your trading partner community? It's also about scalability. Customers are dealing with a rise in suppliers and volume and file sizes. So how do the systems scale to meet that demand? And then we're also looking at modernization. Each of these trends really stress the B2B systems and they create new challenges. Other challenges are caused by aging systems, lack of investment as complexity grows. And really your greatest challenges today are often warning signs of future disruptions. So, lack of agility and flexibility, complexity, security, always top of mind. These are things that our customers are dealing with and struggling with, and certainly trends that are being driven by your trading partners for the need for performance systems. Gone are the days of batch processing, and customers are demanding real-time access into your systems. So what is a health check? A health check is a 2-week virtual health check engagement for IBM Sterling systems. Our team of experts will conduct a deep dive into your system, analyzing performance, security, and scalability. We'll identify any bottlenecks, security vulnerabilities, and areas for improvement. This service is not just about fixing your issues, it's about proactively enhancing your system to prevent future problems and to ensure it aligns perfectly with your business needs. Common issues that we see that stress the Sterling systems, certainly having lack of visibility and monitoring. If you're reactive and constantly in that root cause analysis mode, that certainly can put stress on your systems. Not being able to identify certain bottlenecks. One of the biggest bottlenecks in the system is certainly the database. So I'm sure a lot of you had experience with some database bottlenecks. We'll talk about some best practices there, but we can also work with you to alleviate those bottlenecks. Certainly working in support, we looked at the various architectures, so subpar architectures, not taking advantage of clustering, not taking advantage of adapter containers, and all the features that Sterling offers for scalability. Behind in patching, oftentimes issues are located in the product, whether it be orphan data or issues that cause a growth in your database. Once those issues are resolved, of course, they're patched, but that data still remains in your system. So how do you make sure that you go about cleaning up that data? Poor business process and map development. Certainly, if you're putting too much information into memory, if you have poor business process looping and map processes, this can be identified. And oftentimes, this leads to the dreaded out of memory error that occurs with Sterling. And then finally, as I talked about, rising file size and volumes. So why is it important? Annual system downtime costs can exceed over $120,000 per year. That is can be multiple pillars from productivity loss if you're constantly in a reactive mode and bringing the system up and working with IBM support. Certainly, it's a loss of productivity. Sales and opportunities loss. Of course, when your systems are down, you're down to the world. A lot of our businesses are very competitive. So the first one that be able to respond to request can win that business. So if the systems are down and the systems are running slow, it can lead to the loss of sales. And then certainly your reputational damage. I know myself, if I'm working with a company and their systems are constantly down, I'm taking my business elsewhere. And then certainly from your business perspective, your critical files that run through the system, regulatory and legal costs. So if you miss your service level agreements, or on the partner side, if you're not aware of your partner's SLAs or service level agreements, that certainly can lead to lost revenue as well. Be able to collect on those regulatory requirements and SLAs. So when is the perfect time to introduce a health check? Well, a couple things that have recently in the Sterling world. IBM Sterling B2B Integrator version 6.2 is now available. This has been many years in the making. I had a hand in a lot of these features as well. So a lot of cloud native features that now are available in 6.2. A lot of scalability improvements, a lot of improvements around the resiliency. So if you have not checked out the 6.2 release, reach out to your IBM sales rep, reach out to Pragma Edge. We'd love to walk you through some of those new features and capabilities and really help you get to that target architecture that we'll talk about today. For those that are running older versions of Sterling, we'd like to keep two versions in market. So right now, 6.2 and 6.1 are our strategic releases. 6.0 will go into support of April 2024, so right around the corner. If you're running these older versions, reach out to your IBM sales rep, reach out to Pragma Edge. We can certainly help you with your upgrade processes, or you can entertain some extended support. However, you don't want to be in that position. So work with us to get those systems upgraded and take advantage of all the new features and capabilities of Sterling 6.2. Some other prime times for introducing a health check is if you're moving to new hardware. Oftentimes you may have to make a tough decision. Do we invest in the data center or do we move to cloud? Those are the perfect opportunities to introduce a health check. Same thing with introducing new operating systems. If you've been running stable on 6.12 for many years, fantastic. What happens is those aging architectures and infrastructure can lead to disruption. So if you're running Red Hat 7, for instance, and now you have to upgrade to Red Hat 9, we know it's not a simple just upgrade of the Red Hat data operating system. You have to migrate. You have to reinstall Sterling B2B Integrator on your new Red Hat 9 server and migrate those resources over. So why bring over all of that junk that may be in your database and your file system? Start new with a fresh health check. So timing really is everything when it comes to a health check. Performing a health check before upgrading to Sterling 6.2 or migrating to containers is a critical step that can significantly benefit the organization. Some of those reasons, it gives you a baseline system health. A health check provides a comprehensive baseline of your system's current state. Understanding this is crucial before any migration or upgrade to ensure compatibility and smooth integration with new features that may be introduced. It identifies legacy issues, so upgrading or migrating offers an opportunity to resolve long-standing system inefficiencies or issues. A health check can uncover these legacy problems, allowing you to address them proactively rather than carrying them forward into the new environment. It optimizes performance by identifying and rectifying existing bottlenecks or performance issues. A health check ensures that you're not just upgrading your software version, but also optimizing the system's overall health. The optimization is essential when moving to 6.2 or containers as it allows you to fully leverage the enhanced capabilities of these platforms. One of the new features in 6.2 that I'm really a big fan of is the enhanced database resiliency. So one of the challenges that have been long-standing in the product is if the system or the database would happen to go down or fail over seamlessly, the application would go into some queuing state. We use JDBC pooling, of course, with Sterling. So when that database gets cut underneath of it, all processes in flight go into a holding state until they all spill over to the new node of that database. That has been enhanced in 6.2. So take a look at the release notes, the what's new, reach out to us. This is the prime time to take advantage of some of those new features. It also identifies security vulnerabilities. New versions, especially, often come with updated security protocols. TLS 1.3 is a great example. TLS 1.3 is mandatory now going through 2024 from IBM. What that means is that we'll start pruning TLS 1.0 connections in 1.1. Oftentimes what this leads to is certainly customers that come out of the woodwork that are no longer that are running TLS 1.0. So no matter if you do introduce the self-service capabilities of upgrading certificates and migrating to TLS 1.3, having visibility in place of those trading partners is crucial. And we'll take a look at some of that. It also is regulatory compliance. It's an ever-moving target. Take FIPS, for instance. For those that are running FIPS 140-2, the new standards now is FIPS 140-3. A health check prior to that that upgrade ensures that your system not only meets your current compliance standards, but is poised to adapt to future regulations. So very critical. The more encryption, of course, that you put on a system, the system performance does go down. So it is a trade-off. However, we can balance that trade-off with proper tuning. And then, of course, feature utilization. As I talked about, 6.2 and the containers come jam-packed with new features and improvements. A health check can identify which of these features will be most beneficial for your organization. Maybe it's taking advantage of the new REST server to be able to kick off business processes as a service. Well, to do that, you have to make sure you have a very tight tuned system. The whole point of a REST-based server or having business processes served up as an API is real time. If those hits are taking minutes as opposed to seconds, then that obviously defeats the purpose of a real-time system. And then finally, one of the biggest thing for me really is the data hygiene. Migrating to a new system or version or moving to containers is the perfect time to clean up your data. Health check can highlight orphan data, redundant, obsolete, trivial data, allowing you to migrate only what's necessary and useful. So think about maybe from a migration standpoint, oftentimes customers have been carrying over their databases for many years, going from 4.3 to 5.2 to 6.0, whatever it may be. As I mentioned, problems in the product are patched over time. However, if there is a leak or if there is an orphan data issue, that data still is resolved, stays in your database. The hole is plugged, but that data still is there. So don't bring over all of that transactional data that is no longer necessary. Bring over just your non-transactional data, your maps, your envelopes, your business processes, et cetera. And then finally, from a training perspective, a health check can identify areas where your team may require additional training. That certainly could be in the move to cloud or containers. This proactive approach to training ensures your team is ready to hit the ground running post your upgrade. So in conclusion, performing a health check before upgrading to 6.2 or moving to containers or cloud is a strategic investment. It not only ensures a smooth transition, but also optimizes your system performance and really maximizes your ROI of your upgrade and that migration effort. We know upgrades are not simple with Sterling. The containers have taken it in a whole new direction, so certainly there is relief on the way, but we know all customers are not ready for that at this moment. So it's a perfect opportunity to introduce a health check. So let's take a look, just kind of step back a little bit of what we talk about a system in an architecture. So your data gateway is at the center, your B2BI and MFG systems. What we're seeing with a lot of customers today is the need for scalable, resilient, secure systems. So oftentimes now, there was two silos. You had your managed file transfer and your B2B integration standpoint. What we're seeing now in the market with the lack of IT skills and, and declining budgets is really the need for consolidation. So consolidating your MFT or consolidating to your B2B onto one platform. Sterling is uniquely positioned to handle not only managed file transfer, so virtually any protocol is supported, including some new trends that we're seeing around cloud object storage. S3 has been wildly popular. We now support Azure blobs. Um, Google buckets, those type of things are becoming very, very popular in the managed file transfer space. So we can secure your data for both at rest and in motion, but also being able to open and interrogate that data through B2B integration. IBM is a leader in standards, whether that be XML, JSON, EDI, or healthcare financial data. Consolidating onto one platform provides a significant return of investment. One of the best ways to really free up your team is introducing self-service. So introducing self-service capabilities, both from an onboarding perspective, but also testing. We're introducing some capabilities around being able to introduce artificial intelligence into your self-service. So taking that to a whole new layer. And then finally, having end-to-end visibility. We're really excited about some AI that we're working with here in Pragma using Watson X. A future webinar coming up in the second quarter will go into more detail about that feature, but we're bringing AI to the data gateway as well. So what is the golden architecture? We talked about it up front. We talk about when you have a performant architecture, what is really your goal? This is kind of the goal that I talk to customers about that you would strive to get your systems to, whether it's a public cloud or a private cloud or a hybrid cloud. This shows an example of an on-premise deployment of multiple data centers. This could also be a single data center with multiple availability zones. But as you can see with the containers, we've moved to more of a microservices architecture. Sterling Secure Proxy can auto scale now based on load. Your adapter containers for B2B integrator now run in its own pod. So they are segmented from B2BI's ASI engine or the NoApp JVM. So when issues come in or when load comes in, we can automatically scale up and down to handle that load. So if you get an influx of SFTP traffic coming into the system, Sterling Secure Proxy, your perimeter servers and the adapter containers can scale up automatically to be able to handle that load. It also is helpful, as we talked about, the adapter container level is really not a new concept in Sterling B2B Integrator, but adapter containers are all about running your protocol adapters in their own JVM. So now they're isolated in their own pod. So now what we've done is isolated your protocol from your processing. So protocol can be scaled up to handle all the I/O associated with SFTP, connector, RAG, AS2, whatever it may be, without affecting B2BI performance. So adapter containers can scale up automatically independent of the ASI engine. If you happen to lose an availability zone or a data center, whether it be planned maintenance or an outage, auto healing occurs where the containers can automatically fail over to the surviving data center or the surviving availability zone. Together with a highly available file system, like a Spectrum Scale or Fusion, and a database, whether it be a database as a service, on all clouds now, we do support a relational database service. So that can be Amazon's relational database service or Amazon RDS for Oracle SQL Server. That can also be SQL Server's managed instance now with 6.2. So a lot of customers are running in Azure. The benefits of partnering with your cloud vendor is that they can ensure that the database is always on. That's the biggest pain point for our customers, whether it be a bottleneck, whether it be failover or running maintenance on the system. Partnering with cloud vendors in a database as a service will transform your environment to always on and seamless interaction as the systems scale up and down. So that was the golden architecture. Let's talk about how you get there and how you get a roadmap to a healthy system. What are some of the traits of a healthy system? Well, peak system health, there's a couple things. One, certainly making sure that you optimize your JVM settings for better performance, making sure you're monitoring this in real time, your memory utilization, making sure that garbage collection is running efficiently, so not pausing your systems when cleanup is necessary, making sure you're sized properly. Regularly clean up your database tables to prevent slowdowns. We see one of the biggest issues that we see is customers not deleting their mailbox messages or persisting too much data. These are some of the best practices and some of the pieces that we look for in a health check. Certainly taking advantage of new features from clustering to adapter containers is one way to increase your system health. And then also, realizing that you have 9 queues within B2B Integrator. B2B Integrator is built on a queuing philosophy, of course. What we see from poor business process design is everything gets shoved into a single lane or Q4 or Q6. With those 9 queues, by taking a strategy of being able to utilize those 9 queues is really that highway scenario. You have 9 lanes on your highway. Oftentimes, customers will restrict all traffic to a single lane. Well, just like in traffic or in real life, that leads to backups, that leads to bottlenecks. So taking advantage of business process design is very crucial. We can help you with that from a health check perspective. Having proactive performance is very, very critical. Monitoring, that is. So how are you monitoring your infrastructure? How are you monitoring your memory, your disks, your database utilization? How are you monitoring Sterling B2B Integrator? QWatcher is a fantastic tool, but it's a snapshot. It doesn't keep track of things over time. So how do you make sure that you're keeping track and being proactive as opposed to reactive when issues happen? And then finally, we're introducing generative AI into the system. So it learns about your systems. And those are some things that we can bring to the table. From a peak processing perspective and operational health, that includes governance, end-to-end visibility, dashboarding. One of the things that I see the most that customers really request is that their administrators or their executives, that is, want to see a nice dashboard when they log in the morning of how much file transfers were done the day before. They want to see anomalies of data. Did we send X amount of data 2 weeks ago, and this week we received twice that data? Why? Those are some of the things that we're looking for. This also talks about predictive analytics, so learning about your system over time. So we can identify trends, we can identify anomalies in the system. That also leads itself to partner performance metrics. Which partners are sending data on time? Which partners are causing errors in your system? Those errors can be handled automatically, either through fault tolerance or through AI. So those are some things that we're bringing to the table. And with those performance partner metrics, you can actually work with your partners to actually do and correct those before they become escalating to production downs. And we'll take a look at that in a demo here shortly. So this introduces operational excellence, compliance, and really gives you that competitive edge by having a peak performing system. So let's go over some best practices. I'm going to introduce my colleague Sumit. Sumit, if you don't mind introducing yourself and go into a little bit of some of the best practices that you've seen around the Sterling performance in this the environment.
Sure, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Sumit Ahuja. I have 13 years of experience working with the Sterling application. I have worked as a developer, an admin, and consultant on Sterling. Most recently, I was part of the official PMR L2 support team, where I was leading the database and performance related cases. I worked there for more than around 5 years, and now I have joined hands with Ryan Wood in Pragma Edge in the pre-sales as a solution architect. Yeah, coming back to the best practices, B2B IBM development team does provide the best practices and mandatory settings which we must be following in order to have the right and optimal performance of the application. To give an example, that for example, for the databases for MS SQL, there's a specific correlation settings which must be configured for the databases, and the same way for the underlying operating system, be it Windows or be it Linux or Unix, there are some recommended and mandatory settings. For example, having the soft no file and hard no file setting configured appropriately. If these settings are not configured in all the other components on which the B2B application relies on, you may not get the best optimal performance coming out of it. One of the other best practices are that IBM recommends that we must use the balanced type of garbage collection policy for any JVM which is part of the IBM products, and having the JVM size of 4 GB and higher. In the same way, what happens is that when you assign the CPU cores, the threads the CPU provide from the server level distribute across the 9 queues in the B2B, and all if you are not distributing your business processes across all those 9 queues, you are actually not utilizing all the resources allocated to your application from the server, and you are not getting the best optimal. So in order to get the best optimal performance, we must distribute all the business processes across all the queues so that we can use the resources allocated to all those queues and utilize them during the peak volume time. So these are some of those best practices. Back to you, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Sumit. I know you've had a lot of time in support. What's kind of the number one issue that you typically see? I see things it has some things about database maintenance and also load distribution. What are some of the common issues that you've seen most frequently that lead to production downs from a performance standpoint?
Yeah, very great question, Ryan. So one of the most common issues I have seen during my support experience, that customer do have the Oracle or the MS SQL databases, but they are not using and they are not performing the regular maintenance as a part of best practices. IBM does recommend, and it is there in the IBM documentation as well, that we must perform the database maintenance, that is rebuilding the indexes and gathering the stats every time when there's a 20% change in the database. And since B2B database is an OLTP type of database, online transaction processing database, that it does not be treated should not be treated like a warehouse database where we are holding a lot of data. It keep on changing, so every time there's a 20% change in the database, we must perform the maintenance. And I have seen that customer do not perform those maintenance on regular basis, and then eventually end up having the performance issues. And if I give you another example, one of the other example, I have seen that application comes with some default housekeeping processes, and these housekeeping processes are configured with the very basic default settings. For example, like backup service is running once in a day, and the BP linkage per service is configured to only delete 500 records. So these and also runs just once in a day. So these out of box settings are not enough to work on a production holding environment. And if you do not reconfigure them as per your production environment, these processes will keep on holding back, and they keep on getting back in cleaning up the records, and the database size keep on increasing. And then when the database size reaches a certain point, that it start giving the performance issues in running the queries, then customer do not realize that what exactly happened over the past 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, when they never change those settings. And then they come back to the support saying that this application or this environment was working fine for this many of years or this many of months, and now we have started seeing the bottleneck in the performance. But the actual reason was that they never touched the housekeeping processes which came out of the box.
Yeah, that's a great point. Especially if the system is constantly at the same peak, if you're processing the same load day in and day out, obviously you're going to have business processes, those house cleaning that is on schedule, that's running as you expect. But if you get seasonal demand, and especially a spike over a day or two, that can back things up, for lack of a better word. So those are some great best practices. I like you also mentioned the data warehousing. It's not a data warehouse. However, we do have a solution for that. If you require data for longer than 2 weeks, typically that's the cutoff for how much data you keep live. I'll talk a little bit about how we can make sure that you have that visibility going back as long as you need to keep that data. So great stuff there, Sumit. I know you're one of the architects that do some of these health checks, so a great resource that we can bring and help your team. With that, I kind of want to go over, Ashutosh had some great points about proactive monitoring. So one of the things that we have are some tools to run Pragma Edge. These are one of the things that I'm certainly excited about being a part of this team. I know my experience working with from a support perspective, I wish all customers had a tool like this, especially when issues arise or we're troubleshooting issues. One of the most challenging issues is if you get a performance issue and it happened maybe in the past and we can't replicate that issue. Well, unfortunately, the only thing that we can do is say if it happens again, do X, Y, and Z. And we do have some charts in the background, and we'll make these slides available for everybody. But some must gathers that you have to have: thread dumps, logs, analysis, DB2 reports, all those type of things. With Jarvis, it's a proactive monitoring tool, so it runs all the time. It's a centralized monitoring of data points, really to manage your data gateway. It really can solve problems before things escalate. So not only does it monitor your system health, things like heartbeat between your nodes, your CPU, your memory, it looks at JVM memory, very important. Obviously the NoApp JVM is the biggest JVM, so we want to pay close attention to that. But we know there's several JVMs that make up the application, including adapter containers that run in their own JVM. You heard from Sumit, if they're tuned over 4 GB, you got to make sure you're using the balanced garbage collection. Jarvis will make sure that that's in place. It also keeps track of your adapter statuses and your application health. What I like about this, not only does it look at your infrastructure level, your disk, your CPU, your memory, it also is really fine-tuned for Sterling. And we'll take a quick live look at this as well in just a moment, but it monitors your databases, your threads, your queues to give you a strategy on how to use those solutions. And then the log monitoring. Log monitoring, is very critical currently with Sterling. There's many logs within the system, and it's very critical to troubleshooting issues and identifying patterns. And one of those patterns may be security related: authentication logs, security logs. Who's hitting your SSP servers? Are you getting a denial of service attack if somebody trying to do a brute force attack or a password dictionary type of attack? These are all prevalent in your logs and typically escalate to somewhat of a production issue. So if you're not watching the system 24/7, and who can do that? Jarvis can do that for you. Another tool that Ashutosh talked about is File GPS. File GPS is an enhanced visibility tool providing end-to-end visibility across file transfers. What I really like about File GPS is not only does it track files within Sterling, so as things come into the Sterling secure proxy through your perimeter servers through B2B integrator, you have full visibility into that audit trail. Who touched the file? Was the file modified? And going back to Sumit's point about the system is a high transactional OLTP application and it's not meant for data warehousing, we take all that data from Sterling and store it in our systems. Very, very performant. We do not have a performance overhead where we're constantly pinging the database. We use a pub sub model using either Kafka for high volumes or APIs for posting events to File GPS. File GPS is also deployed across your network. We know oftentimes that if an EDI system is down, Sterling could be up, but your EDI is still down. And how could that be? Well, if your Sterling environment is still up and you're sending and receiving documents, you'll be able to see that very clearly through File GPS. But your backstream processing, here we have a scenario where it comes through secure proxy to Sterling B2B integrator. That then gets passed to MQ and back to your SAP systems, and then perhaps for SAP to ServiceNow. We have these end-to-end scenarios that we configured in-house to be able to demonstrate to our customers. So you have visibility into what's happening to SAP. You have visibility what's happening into ServiceNow. Once that file has been processed on the back end, then it gets routed back out the gateway. So it can track it back again from ServiceNow to SAP to MQ to SI. So you can really identify at a bird's eye view of where the problems lie with those systems. If your partner says that they did not receive the data, you can clearly log in here and provide repudiation or receipts that the file was sent successfully. This is just one aspect of File GPS. But what we see a lot of customers starting to use it for is global visibility. So from a global standpoint, it can track files throughout the life cycle of the files, from data transfer to transformation and translation to integrating to backend systems. It also provides data governance. So again, making sure that only the right people have access to the data. Think about your line of business users. You don't want them to give them the login to Sterling File Gateway or B2B Integrator. It's oftentimes data is hard to find, but B, obviously we don't want them taking actions on the data, or we don't want them to see another department's data. So it introduces data governance with role-based access. If you have multiple divisions, we see global mailbox deployed on a global scale. So you have multiple divisions across the globe. Maybe you have a Latin America and a North American environment. You can synchronize all of that into one single point of glass with File GPS. So those listeners get deployed across your networks, across your application, very lightweight, highly performant, and it gives you the lineage of your files, and it also provides alerting, SLA management. One thing I like about the alerting is not only does it send emails, because I know everybody on this call gets thousands of emails from the system or from external places, and emails can be easily missed. Or it's hard to separate the noise. Maybe you get an email that your purge failed while you got an email that a file was missed. Those can be lost. So we can also point to APIs. So if you're using a ServiceNow, or if we're using Slack or Teams, we can raise alerts to this. And then as Ashutosh mentioned, there's rich dashboards in the system to be able to dig into detail. Contact us for a demo. We can actually demonstrate this with your specific requirements. So if you have use cases of a homegrown application being transferred to B2B integrator, or if you have a separate B2B tool and Sterling File Gateway, File GPS can monitor that from end to end, and we can build out scenarios to kind of give you hands-on experience with the product. So let's take a quick look at the demo. And one of that, I want to look at File GPS. As we kind of talked about, File GPS is a proactive monitoring solution. It has a nice, rich user interface that's provided both a single sign-on and multi-factor authentication. At a bird's eye view, when you log in, it gives you statistics of your environment. So looking at CPU, memory, system status, and your uptime. It monitors all your adapters at a bird's eye view. What I really like about it is that you can build out dashboards, and there's separate dashboards for maybe certain environments. Maybe you have a production, a non-production. Maybe you have a container environment and a cloud environment. It can monitor everything. And with the dashboards that we have, you can certainly go back in time. So I'm going to go back 24 hours and kind of look at some of the details in here. Not only does it provide the uptime of the applications, this system is monitoring SI, Partner Community Manager, and Partner Engagement Manager. It can also monitor the other Sterling products, from Connect Direct to Sterling Secure Proxy, but also third-party applications. It keeps track of metrics in the system, from CPU to memory to disk utilization. This is tracked over time so we can detect anomalies. Again, if there's an issue that occurs and you see a big spike, it can alert you to those issues. We dig into the database usage. So looking at the time it takes to post data, looking at your house cleaning activities and your pool information. So all your third-party pools or your pools that are out of the box, all of that is monitored and alerted to. It looks at file processing. One of the things I like about is that it looks at your mailbox depth. So if you have mailboxes that maybe you forgot about, maybe there's mailboxes out there that have thousands of messages in there but hasn't been deleted, it'll identify those mailboxes and you can dig into more detail about those mailboxes. It certainly looks at your adapters and your schedulers to make sure all the big pieces are running. I also like that it looks at business processes, so it gives you what queue they're running in. So again, very important to make sure you have a queue system in place to make sure that you're running the business processes effectively. What it also identifies is the number of executions per node. If you have a multi-nodes cluster and you have 90% of your workloads on node one, well, why isn't that workload being balanced? Maybe there's a clustering issue, maybe there's a tuning setting that's needed. But it also looks at number of business processes, in your business processes, the number of steps. You want to be alerted to a business process that has maybe over 100 steps in the process. That can all be done through this system. So very, very in depth. It goes into sessions on the database. It goes into latency, CPU, et cetera. And probably one of my favorite ones is not only the certificate management, where it'll track your certificates and alert you to when a certificate is about to expire. Of course, with Partner Engagement Manager, it can also be enhanced to automatically kick off a campaign to refresh certificates, but to dread it out of memory. So we've configured a system that when out of memory issues occur, not only does it alert you to that before it happens, but if an out of memory were to happen, it monitors the system for those Java cores and your heat dumps, and it'll actually identify in that thread dump what workflows we're running. So once you have that workflow ID in the stack trace, you can identify exactly what the issue may be. Maybe it's waiting on the database. As you can see here, here's a stack called a DB2. It can identify and be able to acknowledge what issue caused the out of memory. So you don't have to open up tickets with support. You don't have to have the system debug logging for weeks and waiting for the system to happen and take thread dumps. The system is monitoring in real time. So a really great tool. If I was in your shoes, this is something that I absolutely would have as a part of my arsenal. So again, that was just a short demo. We're happy to go into more detail with that, including some use cases around artificial intelligence. I'm really excited about to what Watson X is going to bring to Jarvis, Partner Engagement Manager, and File GPS. So stay tuned. So I know we're running out of time. I do want to talk about, Ashutosh mentioned a very comprehensive guide that we leave behind with your health checks. As you can see on the right-hand side, this is an example. We go through many, many pillars of system health. It actually includes a free trial of Jarvis. At Pragma Edge, we run some of the world's largest workloads on our systems. The biggest companies in the world, the Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, we run their systems in conjunction with IBM Expert Labs. We use Jarvis as a critical component to make sure those systems are always on. We ourselves have very tight service level agreements. So if you partner with Pragma Edge to be able to host your environments, you can have assurance that we are proactively monitoring it 24/7, not only with humans, but also with artificial intelligence in Jarvis. We deploy Jarvis on your system so we can track all that information while we're not around the system. And then you have the opportunity to whether or not you want to keep the product or not. The product's already installed, so we can offer a low cost implementation of Jarvis that you continue to use for your proactiveness. But we go into system logs. We look at your DR strategy. We analyze your security posture. I talked about load balancing. If your systems are monitoring and you have 3 nodes and only one node is handling all the load, well, then you need to adjust your settings. So tuning that to be able to distribute the load evenly. We look at your architecture. Are you using best practices, database health, performance metrics, infrastructure, and also future growth and scalability planning? So as you're planning for upgrades, as you're planning for containers, or you're planning for your peak processing times, this is the perfect time to introduce that, especially before the holiday seasons. And again, you get a very comprehensive guide left behind with particular recommendations on how you can implement it over time. And we identified the ones that you kind of want to do in a chronological order so you can make sure that you're taking advantage of most of the health check. So kind of wrapping up, we talked a lot, we covered a lot. We covered certainly some of those challenges and trends that customers are dealing with. We looked at some of the best practices for tuning your systems. We looked at the golden architecture and how you can make sure and really have a goal in mind to be able to strive towards peak processing and constant always on systems with auto healing, auto scaling with containers. We heard from Ashutosh and Zoetis on their journey. So you can join in with Zoetis with a similar story and similar results. And then we looked at, of course, some of the demo of Jarvis and File GPS. So let's take a look at the return on investment. So we kind of talked about the annual downtime cost can exceed $120,000. Manual monitoring for all the eyeballs that are on this call today, being able to stay in front of your systems 24/7, 365 is certainly unattainable. So manual monitoring of the system, babysitting the system can completely be resolved with proactive monitoring. Certainly, Ashutosh talked about SLAs and the risk to very high profile, high volume, or I'm sorry, high critical time sensitive information like payroll. Perfect example. And then mitigating security risk can easily add up to $300,000 conservatively. With Pragma Edge, if we can cut down your downtime even by 50%, and that could be, again, making sure that you have the right practices in place for clustering so you can apply maintenance with zero downtime. 6.2 has a new feature that you can upgrade to it with no downtime, even with schema changes. So think about that. If you're on 6.0 or 6.1 and you want to move to 6.2, well, of course, you got to think about your hardware, your infrastructure, the operating system, whether you move to containers or cloud, but you can upgrade in with zero downtime. So we can work with you on that to make sure that you have the right architecture in place to be able to handle that. So if we can reduce even planned downtime or the dreaded, of course, unplanned downtime, that can save you easily $60,000 per year. Efficiency gain, giving you more time to do things that you need to do, can easily save 36,000. And then same thing with SLA compliance, not only for you, but for your partners as well. Total savings 1 year can exceed $180,000. This is going to pay for itself, and then extrapolate that over 3 years, $500,000. So leverage Pragma Edge for system health, efficiency, and security. Transform operational costs into a strategic investment. Get started today. Book your free initial assessment by reaching out to us at sales@pragmaedge.com. We'll make sure everybody gets a copy of these slides and the recording. We work with you. Submit, myself and our architects will join you on a call for free, and we go through your assessment. We look at your architecture. We understand your pain points, and then we see if a health check is right for you, and we'll put a scope of work in front of you so you can make that strategic investment. So now we'll open up for questions, but I want to make sure that you stay tuned for future Can't Miss webinars. We'll be talking about what's the next with IBM Sterling in the April timeframe. So subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our LinkedIn profiles. We'll be showing you how we introduce artificial intelligence with IBM Sterling. Really exciting stuff. And then we'll have more customers join us with partner engagement managers sharing their best practices.
Question is there, File GPS, does File GPS monitor ITX?
Great question. IBM Pragma Edge File GPS absolutely monitors ITX, and that's a big point because ITX doesn't have that UI like an ITXA does or B2B integrator. So it can be deployed to monitor your ITX, your translations, your mapping processes, and be able to track it from end to end. Contact us. We'll set up a demo for you with ITX so you can see it live. But that's a great point. Not only does it cover just B2B integrator, file gateway, all the Sterling products, and even competitive and homegrown solutions. Great question. Where can you find more? I'm going to make these slides available. We have a performance corner that we built on Pragma Edge's website where we have all these best practices here. We give you some examples of some challenges and some things and queries that you can run and best practices around tuning your system. I've also listed the IBM must gather. So when you do have issues, these are the things that you want to gather when issues happen. Again, if you have Jarvis, we're already gathering those in real time, but these are some best practices to have and bookmark. And then finally, there's a really great Java tuning cookbook that the WebSphere team put out. Really goes into detail about what the balanced garbage collection policy is and other Java tuning parameters. Take a look at it. We use that cookbook to build Jarvis and some great feedback and some great input that you can derive from that. So I want to thank everybody for your time and joining us with us. If you have further questions, please reach out to me directly at ryan.wood@pragmaedge.com or sales@pragmaedge.com.